recording this so you can show it to any of your colleagues if you want to. Um, okay. Is my screen being shared or did I forget to hit that button?
We did not see it.
Yep, I got it. Thank you. Okay. So this, Gail, is the actual product that you will engage with when you're a Sonicu user, hopefully. What I have is like admin rights to the whole thing. So yours will never be, it's very simple when you first come in, but I can like look at, for instance, um, University of Florida entomology. Nope, I think they're still setting theirs up. They're a new customer. Here's the honeybee research lab. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a very good looking site because everything is green. So it's like a traffic light where we do green, yellow, red. And then when you look at this, if everything's green, you're good to go, right? And then if they have a map view set up, we'll show you that. So this is not as good of one. You might be more interested in seeing something that looks like this. Hang on. So we are based in Indianapolis. So we have a ton of customers here. Hang on. Okay, so the IU School of Medicine is probably our best customer, most related to you all. It is the nation's largest school of medicine and very heavily funded by NIH and all the other, major grant organizations that fund all kinds of terrific research there. And because it's just a few miles down the road from us, we've got a great relationship with them, and I can kind of show you all the different departments, right? So this is your main dashboard that you would have that shows you how things look there. And you can even see, one of them's offline and you can scroll in here and see what's going on. No, actually, this is not offline. The last reading is approaching yellow, so it's getting close to its danger zone, meaning this is an area that you might want to go pay attention to, telling you the freezer is not performing as well as it should, right? This is probably a -80 fridge and a freezer, excuse me, and 4 minutes ago it read at -25. Oftentimes that's just a door being open, but as you can imagine, it's a great thing to have to be able to look in that quickly and see the issues. And then here are all of the reports that you would want to be able to send to the people that both validate your research and fund it. And these have all been built on voice of the customer from dozens and dozens and dozens of people like yourself. So we're just going to set a point here, right? We're going to look at the log time by day. Let's see how this looks. So it's going to send it to my email. Give me 1 second to open it up. And I got a call coming in from Florida, so give me a second. That might be Jim. we were just able to solve. Zoom is our friend, but sometimes it's a little particular. So thank you all for being patient with me as I worked with my colleagues to solve that. They are here now. Jim, you are a panelist, correct? Jim, are you able to hear me, bud? I see you as a panelist.
Okay, can you guys hear me now? Yeah.
So they should.
All good, Jim.
You can hear me.
Well done,
Okay.
sir.
Awesome. We're just gonna switch to my laptop here. Thanks for everyone's patience while we work through the technical difficulties here. Gonna make some introductions while I get this officially hooked up here, guys. Jim Lair here with Sonicu for the folks who are remote on the phone. Have Chris Canisi with me here, who is on the Sonicu team. Chris lives in the Tampa St. Pete area, and he helps us cover the Southeast region. I have Roy Hoffman in the room with us as well. Roy's with Stark Tech, and they are a local Sonicu installation and service partner. So would love to hear from you all to start. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here.
And Jim, you're there at the dental school for those joining on the call.
universities, but side of universities and manufacturing and biotech and pharma. So we do a lot of stuff with -80 monitoring as a for not only for regulatory compliance. There's probably not a lot of regulatory guidelines that you have in university research, but just to illustrate some of the requirements that we meet from a regulatory standpoint, we're monitoring production of drugs and those kinds of things that are coming down the pike before they're released to either be manufactured or finished products before they make it to the public. So
So
back in.
yeah, I'm back in. Hey, folks who are remote, we lost actual internet here. So we are back online at University of Florida Internet. I'm not sharing the right page here though.
Oh, it has, what's the HDMI port?
Yeah, did you?
On the TV?
Oh, on the TV?
It's probably still showing on the computer.
It is. It's still showing that computer.
There's like a little toggle button that's 1 versus 2 down below. It's like a little black box.
Green light.
Got a green light on it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go. All right. So, so from a high level, as Chris was mentioning, so Sonicu is a remote monitoring company. So what we do, go ahead, Roy.
Are you sharing your screen for the people?
I believe so. Are you seeing my screen at home there? There we go.
Yes, we are.
You are. Okay. So let's start over here. I know we're about 24 minutes behind here, guys. We had some technical difficulties, and once we got started, it looks like I got booted off the University of Florida Wi-Fi here. So we're back on. So Sonicu, we're based out of Indianapolis, just from 10,000 feet up, with customers across the country. We actually started as a sound monitoring company. So the name Sonicu derives from sound in the NICU. The original founder of the company had a premature baby and started monitoring neonates for sound levels in hospitals. And that evolved over time into our number one application today is temperature. So ULT, -80s, cryogenic, standard -20s. We monitor ambient room temperature and humidity. In labs, we do things like incubator monitoring for temp, humidity, CO2, heat blocks, blanket warmers in hospitals, all sorts of things. So what we're able to do is from a high levels, place wireless sensors into these units, right? And they're all NIST calibrated for accuracy, so for compliance purposes. And they're pulling that data and getting it to the cloud. So we have a cloud-based platform hosted on enterprise Amazon Web Services. So similar reason that, companies like Chase Bank use AWS. Secure, reliable, and what you're able to do then is log in from anywhere and view the live temperature readings. The other thing that you're able to do is receive alarms when something's in excursion. So from an asset protection standpoint, those alarms can be delivered to a person, a group of people, via phone call, text, email, push notifications on the app, right? So we have a free app for iOS and Android. We call it a smart alarming platform. We have some things built in there that really evolved through voice of customer over time, right? So things like alarm escalation paths that you can set. If someone doesn't respond to an alarm in an appropriate amount of time, that those alarms can be escalated to different groups of people. We also have things to avoid, alarm fatigue, which, some customers, with their alarming platform will say that sometimes that's an issue for them that they're receiving too many alarms. So we have auto resolve features, alarm buffering features. We have things like vacation mode. So if you go on vacation, you can forward your alarms right to someone else. The other side of that then is, and Chris mentioned the regulatory piece, which we don't see as much in university research. We do occasionally, is the full data reporting, right? So all of that data, all of those points of data, all of those check-ins are also then stored when you log in into audit-ready compliance reports. So you can go back in time, you can do diagnostics, you can see what your temperatures were, you can see what your average or MKT temperatures were, and that sort of thing. So any questions there just from a, 10,000 foot view of what we do? And is this something that has come up for any of you in the past, that you need an alarming system for your ULTs or room conditions, incubators, that sort of thing?
Has anybody had a freezer fail or close to failing, and obviously you know the consequences of that?
Well,
It's
that
not fun, right?
happens maybe once or twice in a couple of years. It's not such a problem during the weekdays where people is walking around, it was like someone that actually will respond to it.
Sure.
I guess the biggest problem will be when it happens on the weekend or during a holiday
Yeah.
where there's just no one to actually be there to know it, so you know it when coming, so.
Yep.
And those are the calls that we get sometimes. Sometimes they're pretty sad. We've had 10 years of autism research down the drain where they called us. They had a local alarming system like you're talking about, and nobody was there. Happens on a weekend or a holiday weekend, middle of the night sort of thing. There was actually a case that made the news about a year and a half ago in New York, in the state of New York, and that was a third party custodial staff that was on site, and their local alarm was beeping, and it was annoying, and he unplugged it, turned it off.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that. That's happened more than once. There's too many cases of that, and those people are typically there when people are working in the labs too, right? So they're gonna be there on the nights and the weekends, when the buildings are empty, so.
Yeah.
Boy, when that happens, it's not a good time.
Yeah, and that's what our system's built for, right? Like you mentioned, you would get that remote alarm. The nice thing is with the app now, you don't even necessarily have to pull out a laptop. You can look at your phone and you can see what's going on there. You can watch the temperatures adjust, right? And then you can take corrective action if necessary. And so that's really what this is built around, is that asset protection piece. And then of course the compliance side, and it's more than just temperature. So we have a wide array of sensors, right? For everything I mentioned, cryogenic and ULT. We have wireless peel and stick door closure sensors, water leak detection, water pucks. So just about any disaster at your facility, you can be remotely alarmed on that.
Do you do gas levels?
We-
We use incubators that have like 5% CO2 and detect gas levels.
We do. And actually one of the sensors that we have in here is an incubator sensor. So a lot of times with incubators, there are really two types of incubators that we monitor. Some only want temperature and others need temp, humidity, and CO2. And that behind you, I plugged that in, that we actually can monitor differential pressure. So if there are any clean room spaces in your lab. So that's the live, actually I plugged a sensor in. So that's this actual room's temperature and humidity. That's why we're all sweating. I think it said 84, 85 degrees a minute ago.
No,
Is it at 75 now? When I first plugged it in, it registered at 84.
The
Um,
floor is really hot.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Does anybody know how old this building is?
Old.
Yeah, so you can definitely tell it's older, and that's,
Yeah,
we've
70.
seen. Yeah, and we've seen a lot of benefit to, customers wanting to adopt a system where in their older buildings, older HVAC systems, a lot of temperature fluctuations, things like that, so.
yeah, good point. And the other thing there is diagnostic alarming. So we can tell you if the power goes out. We can tell you if there's an internet disruption as well. So especially with an older building, a lot of times people want to know if the power goes out, then that could be an emergency for your research, right? Somebody needs to get in there and maybe move things around. From a connectivity standpoint, what you see in the middle here, this is our Sonilink hub. And so what that allows us to do, there are a couple different ways for us to get the data to the cloud. We have one small research lab here at the University of Florida right now, who chose Wi-Fi for their connectivity. And we're in the middle of working with the University of Florida IT security team to get that approved. If you want to hit the easy button with IT security, the Honeybee lab that I mentioned here at Florida uses this hub. We call it Sonilink. The technology's LoRaWAN. It's a low frequency, long range radio signal. The wireless sensors then communicate to the hub via LoRaWAN, staying off of the University of Florida Wi-Fi network. The hub itself can be plugged into Ethernet at the edge. We also have an option for direct cellular. So if you want to avoid the IT scrutiny altogether, we can go with direct cellular, and then we're not even touching the network at all. The range on them is great. I was at University of Miami. Their cancer research labs are a Sonicu customer, and we were on site testing the range there, and it was, hundreds of feet inside concrete walls, and we were still connected to that hub. Up to 500 of our sensors can connect to a single hub, so it's virtually unlimited as far as the number of sensors that you can use. But that's pulling the data, sending it to the cloud, and the alarming, the reporting, all of that come from there. Any questions on that side of things? Do you guys run into trouble getting things approved for Wi-Fi?
Oh, yeah. All the time.
Yeah. It's a, yeah.
I think flying on like direct cellular or something to consider, because one thing considering in Florida is the hurricane season, and the Wi-Fi can get knocked out sometimes, and I don't think we want to do this like for critical stuff. Think about alarms and stuff and putting it through Wi-Fi, so.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think in terms of that, and our customers in South Florida a lot, especially, we can also do is Ethernet with cellular failover. So it can be plugged into Ethernet, and if the Ethernet goes down, the hub automatically recognizes that, fails over to cellular backup. It's also alarmable, so you would know when that happened. And I'll show you the software platform here in a second, but there are diagnostic alarms, there are diagnostic reports in there as well. I didn't hear anyone say that are you aware of clean rooms that are in any of the facilities?
Not here.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll kind of skip over that part a little bit. That's a big part of what we do as well. I mentioned, already the various connectivity options, but this is essentially it here. We're getting that data to the hub, it's hosting it on AWS, on the cloud, and then, you have, once again, multiple ways of doing that. So these are really the three main areas. There we go, dark there. Okay, three main areas where we help people. With labs in universities, it's usually the asset protection and the elimination of the manual logging piece. If you do run into regulatory scrutiny, though, I know that all those reports will be there for you as well. And I mentioned CDC here. I mean, it can be CAP, COLA, CLIA, FDA. What have you type of regulatory requirements. So we check the boxes on all of those with our reporting. All of our customers are life sciences researchers or hospitals for the most part. So the system, the reporting, all of that is built around that. So onboarding, I want to talk about this briefly because I think that our philosophy and processes in place for onboarding new customers is really good. It's developed over time with the type of customers we work with. So the first thing that happens with every new customer is you're assigned what we call a customer success team or customer success manager. And we have a kickoff call training with you. We get to know you. We get to know your workflow, what type of even research you're protecting. We learn how you want the alarms delivered, who's on your team, who needs to receive those alarms. They handle the training, right, for you as well. One thing that we offer is unlimited training at Sonicu. So if you bring a new person on your team who needs training on the system, we'll do that. We also have our Sonicu Academy, which I'll show you as well, which is a really great resource for our customers. But we have local partners such as Roy and his team for the installation and testing, making sure that, you know, the site's up, the hardware's online, then ongoing support. So we offer live US-based support. The SonicCloud platform is supported 24/7 by our engineering team and the folks at AWS. So if you have any type of issues, call us up. The hardware itself is actually life of the customer warranty. So it comes with a 1-year standard warranty every year that you renew your subscription. That warranty would extend as well with your renewal. And I think it says a lot about our support team. Back home, we have about a 98% year-over-year renewal rate on the subscription side. So I'm going to jump in. Any questions, let me stop there. I'd love to jump in and show you the actual software, but I want to pause any questions on the hardware, the support training, that piece. Okay. I've got a couple different sites up here. This is the Honeybee Lab I mentioned here at the University of Florida. It's a small one, but they've got a few points of monitoring. This is the main dashboard. I'll say this right out of the gate, though. There's a lot of data in here, and I could spend hours going into the weeds on the data that you can have. I'm just going to give you kind of a high level. You notice over here, you can access the alarms, reports, calibrations. All of our sensors are NIST calibrated for accuracy to meet those standards. And then you can reach support here. You'll notice that up here at the top, this navigation bar is on each page of our website as well, or on the SonicCloud site as well. So you can access these from anywhere. This is the main dashboard. It's color coded. You'll notice these are all in range. If I jump over, this is University of Notre Dame labs, and actually theirs are all in range. Here's Miami. So they have an alarm right now, right? So it'll be color coded for you to quickly see that. Come back here for a minute. We call these areas. So you could have multiple labs on here. If you wanted to, each lab could have their own individual site, completely customizable. Our system includes unlimited users, alarms, training, reports, and so on. The price is entirely dependent on the number of points of monitoring. So those data points include unlimited site setup, however you want that. You'll notice this is a small Honeybee lab, so there's only one, what we call area over here on the left. If I come back to the Notre Dame labs, you'll notice they wanted all of theirs on the same site. So within these different areas, if I click on one of these areas, you can set up then different zones. So however it makes sense for you, within the zones are points of monitoring. If you give us a floor plan, we can upload that as well. So a lot of our sites will have the data points mapped out on the floor plan. And if I click on one of these, this is a ULT, this is a -80 freezer, for example, you'll see the live trended data, right, of the check-ins. You can set, they don't have low on this one, probably because it's a -80. They don't have low alarm set, but they have high caution and high alarm threshold set on this one. It looks pretty steady. I can zoom out here to a week. I can zoom out to a month. It's going to backfill that data. Notice it trends up and down a little bit. I could actually, if I drag my cursor in here, I can drag. If you were to have some type of event, you could go in post-mortem, dive in to see exactly how long it was out of range, exactly what happened. I can actually even come here, and I can annotate this. I can draw a circle. I could print that off. I could type notes. I could say, hey, we need to look into this. Maybe you have to go find out how long that research is able to be above that temperature threshold. And this would allow you to go in and see, okay, it was out of range for exactly this number of minutes. And so I noticed over here in the Miami labs, they did have an alarm. So I'll show you how alarms work. But like I said, there's a lot of data in here, but most of it's pretty intuitive. The majority of our customers respond to alarms and run reports. So if you were to have an alarm, you could do this from your phone, the app on your phone. You can grab your laptop, anywhere you have an internet browser. So these are, here's a room temperature. A lot of times people don't set alarms for room temperature. They had an alarm set here. So this is an active alarm. I can quickly see who's receiving the alarms, right? If somebody had typed notes, you can see that kind of audit trail, work together as a team. If I'm on this team, I come in here, I can comment on this alarm, right? I could snooze it for a certain duration or custom duration, or just go ahead and resolve it, right? I can say, okay, the point came back online. I took corrective action, what have you. That then leaves an audit trail for you in the reports. And I won't go too far into the weeds on the reports because it feels like, correct me if I'm wrong, there aren't a lot of regulatory compliance scrutiny in your labs, correct?
No, they're just mainly checking if the specs are right when they're dealing with the -80. Like if someone opens it, it's gonna increase in temperature, so you're trying to see that it's not getting up to this point, or it's kicking back on to reach back to that -80 level,
Right.
plus or minus.
I think it's most people just tracking either malfunction or asset, or could also be just like a human error from one of the staff members. So this are probably the only two things that we are, at least within the department, reading research lab, we are much more concerned about.
Right. Right.
Would you be interested in seeing, so as the example that Alex gave, you open a freezer door, you close it. Obviously, the temperature raises when you open the door. Interested in seeing how quickly that temperature pulls back down as well.
Yeah, I think
So
that is kind of, yeah, I would consider that actual data that would tell us if particular like freezer, it's gonna hit a point where it's no longer able to retain the
Yeah.
function or not, or starting to
Take too long to
deteriorate.
catch up.
Yes,
Mhm.
something like that. So I think that kind of data is really good for decide, maybe we should consider at some point. This is an asset that we have to actually switch out and get a new one, so.
We have a great report for that as well. So a lot of these are built around this excursion report, for example. You'll notice, I'll just show you quickly here that, you can run these on demand or you can have them scheduled out, right? So I can schedule this out daily, weekly, semi-monthly or monthly, and you can choose which data points you want. And these are going to show you all the historical data there. There are also reports, if I come back here to what you're talking about, where I can show a threshold achievement report, for example, right? That will show me the average, and this will print out in my inbox. You can set an acceptable percent of time in range, right? And so if you have units, say that percent is 95%, and you say all of my freezers and fridges should be within the correct temperature range 95% of the time, it will flag the units that start trending out of that. And they're out of range 6, 7, 8, 9% of the time. And what's happening there a lot of times is it's end of life or it needs serviced. And so our customers use this report. It's especially helpful, as you can imagine, in a facility that has a few hundred fridges and freezers. You start flagging those, maybe the compressor's failing, something like that. If you've got research in that freezer, you want to know that before it alarms you at 2 o'clock in the morning that it died, right?
Yeah, because then you have to scramble and try to get a backup unit and transfer all your stuff over. And then, that takes time and that can actually compromise your samples and all that whole process.
And that's how often do you or do you move samples, thaw out a -80?
That can be on a daily basis to weekly basis, and
Yeah.
with the number of personnel in a group, it tend to actually increase exponentially.
Okay.
So, I mean, if like 6, 7 people share a freezer, at least one person will go in during the day.
Yeah.
As long as there's an acceptable range where we can accept that, temperature gonna fluctuate because people open and close. But we can discriminate that fluctuation from actual, the freezer is actually not behaving correctly, it's malfunctioning. We will be able to actually discern these two differences there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can provide you that type of data to know that. I imagine if sharing, that's pretty common in universities, sharing freezers like that. There's probably a little bit of anxiety that someone else will leave the door open or do something that causes it to rise in temperature. Yeah, and so it's customizable. So that I think one of the nice things about our platform is it's customizable to whatever your workflow is. You can add whatever users you need to add. Each individual can set their own alarm schedule, and that sort of thing as well. So, yeah, as far as setting up groups and users and who's gonna be actually doing that, we can work with you on that. We'll point out all the sensors as well. They're all, NIST calibrated for accuracy. So if you come in here to the, the actual calibrations page, you'll notice that, here's a -80 right here, for example. If I click on this icon, it's going to pull up that actual calibration certificate of accuracy. So does this look like the type of platform that would be useful for you, would be helpful for you? Alex, is this kind of what you thought you would
Yeah.
see?
I think this will be something really useful as a department.
Yeah.
Moving forward in terms of like, making sure our assets are protected.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to consider, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole reason. It's just, I wanna see if we can maybe do this as a department service, not to have like each individual lab, but everyone kind of protected in their -8s, because the -8s hold all their most important samples. It's like what they're gonna be using, till till it's all over kind of thing, because that's where everything's basically, that's their bread and butter. That's all their samples are in there. So it's
Yeah,
their
a lot,
goal
a
basically.
lot
Yeah.
of times there are very important cultures or samples.
Yeah.
That they can only be found in the -80.
Yeah.
And it can be kept for like several decades or like, and those are really important assets to us. So if you lose it, and when you lose it, it is very damaging. to the lab.
I'd argue a freezer that's got 20 years old research and it's more valuable than
Yeah.
a fridge full of vaccines or something that
Yeah.
just got shipped in. I mean, whereas there's
Well, I
a
would
dollar
agree.
value with
I
that.
would
but-
agree, like vaccine products or protein products are pretty valuable.
Mhm.
But typically those can be manufactured, can be cultured outside.
Exactly.
Right.
And where we culture it from, actually from viable strains kept in -80. So if we lost in -80, we don't even need to consider how to make it. We have to start from scratch.
It's gone, yeah.
Start over.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've seen from a approval standpoint in research labs, I don't know if you gotten something like this approved before. And the reason I ask, we've helped in a couple different ways. Sometimes it's grant money, and sometimes it will actually help you land a grant if you show that you have a platform like this that's going to be protecting that research.
I know of only
Yeah.
one lab, they previously like mentioned it to me, that one of the grants or one of like the qualifications for this is that they have some kind of monitoring system for their -80. Like that's one of the prerequisites. So that's something that might be interesting to look into, because there might be more or requiring that in the future, just because it's, if something happens, because that can affect your data, that can affect all the outcomes. So it makes it not, scientifically,
Yeah, I would say besides
accurate.
the -80 freezer, like the CO2 incubators, anaerobic chamber, for example.
Yeah.
There's a critical control environment that we do use it on occasion for either experiment purposes or to keep certain reagents or cultures in. So having that system like this well maintained, have a way of tracking it, document it, which would be really good for the department moving forward. It'll be kind of difficult to get one single lab to adopt this, because if the lab is pretty small, there's just no sense in doing it. They would tend to want to do it like getting just one personnel to be involved in it, to do most of the tracking and everything, but with this many labs, this many figures, it becomes something much more of a department level.
Yeah, and I like that. It makes a lot of sense. Let me show you this real.
Duty that becomes off of single person in each lab
Yeah.
actually makes more sense, because now you have a centralized way of managing every single asset in the department.
So, and here's, I wanted to pull this up as well. just to give you a visual on how this can work. So this is, I jumped back to the Notre Dame labs here because they wanted to do something as a whole to protect everything. And interestingly, their museum, the museum at Notre Dame is now using Sonicu as well with our little S-series sensors, which makes sense. They have artwork that's invaluable in there and they need to monitor temp and humidity. But you'll notice these are the different user groups. So you can have a lab with 2 people in it. You can have, 6 people in that group of people who are receiving alarms for those units. So you don't have to receive alarms for everything. You receive the alarms for what you need to receive alarms for.
Reassign where the alarm notification will go to for each asset and like, even though you have it all in one centralized group, for example.
Yeah,
Like, what I meant was like, for example, if this is made to be something that the department share, right? One asset in there is for one particular group, so if that alarm sets off, do you send it to one single person in kind of like in charge of this, or do you send it directly to the research lab?
It can
That
be set
will
up,
work that particular person,
yep, it can be set up however you want to designate
okay.
the alarm tree to escalate essentially. So if you want to go out to the one individual person that's responsible for that particular
So you
asset.
can
Mhm.
pre-allocate which asset and its corresponding notification goes to.
correct. Yeah, that's part of the site setup when we do the kickoff call is everybody's workflow is different. So, yeah, and then you can have, one person maybe in multiple groups. You may have somebody who wants to receive all the escalations because they're the supervisor of overseeing that group. So they only receive alarms if nobody else responds, for example.
Okay.
And then how cumbersome is it to be able to install it into a -80? I know like for other stuff, it's more easier because you can just put it inside a fridge. But like I know that there has to be like an additional like probe going into the -80.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And not -80s are I had another case like the other device came in and it would not fit my suitcase. It's a big, but I can show you. So this is an example of this is a ULT, this is a -80 sensor. So, -80s are tough because they're so frozen solid. But a lot of times there are ports for them on the -80 freezers, specifically for third-party sensors like this, most of the time, or there's a couple different ways we can install those. This is helpful for you all, the fact that you don't have annual calibration requirements, because these are miscalibrated. Some of our customers have requirements where every single year they have to be calibrated, and then you've got to get them out, they're frozen. And you can do it, but it's a little more challenging than a med fridge, for example. Yeah. And then we've got, Roy and his team locally for support and installation, help. I'll say that the Honeybee lab here installed their own, but that was a really small lab.
The probes themselves running off their own power source, or do you need additional power source for the probes?
So these plug into our Duo meter, which is, I come back here, I don't know if we have one. Oh, we do. Oh, we do. Okay. So they plug into our Duo meter. So it's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. These meters come with a standard power supply, plug into a wall outlet. They also have a lithium battery built into them that will last about a year on battery as a primary. So if you have an area where you don't have power and they charge just like right here, micro USB, just like a cell phone. So pretty easy to charge. You don't have to swap batteries out. And they'll last a year. They also auto fail to the battery. So if power goes out, for example, it will capture all the data locally and upload and backfill it to the cloud when it comes back online. So yeah.
That means that, let's say, hypothetically, if let's say there's a power outage in the entire building, So including the probe, everything will be shut off.
Mhm.
Okay. So unless we switch it over to a battery,
The battery's built in, so the battery will take over when it recognizes that the power is out. So if the
Okay.
primary, if you
Yeah.
use
so
the
it do
primary
have a
power.
backup, so it can all switch by itself.
Yes.
It auto switch and we call it data sync. And there are, we have customers who can't have gaps in their data. So if they're audited, they can't say, oh, sorry, the power's out for 10 minutes, so this will capture it and then it'll actually backfill it and color code it on the site.
So that's only for the probe or including, you mentioned there's a hub, or does the hub has the same thing built in, or that itself it requires a landline power source?
The hub itself requires power. So we do have some customers who will use their own third-party battery backup. They're pretty
I
inexpensive.
mean,
Get 'em
like
up.
a
because
UPS.
Exactly, UPS. Yeah.
You just need to know that if that's gonna be the case, it has to go into a backup generator if it comes down to it.
Yeah. And those are easier because there's fewer of them. There's more of these.
Yeah, so in theory, if your power went out and your network went out because your power went out, if you had a cellular connection tied into a hub that's backed up with battery, you wouldn't lose anything. Because the hub's gonna be battery backed up, it's communicating cellularly to the cloud, and your probe's on a battery as well. So you'll not lose anything at all.
Okay.
Not that you lose it anyway, because like Jim said, you have the data sync capability, so all that data that's been, it's still being captured while your power's down, your network's down, and it will all be uploaded when it's reestablished, but in that scenario, you'd be able to still view everything live. Because you'd have power to the hub, communicating cellularly to the cloud, the sensor would still have power, it would be like nothing was lost at all.
Okay.
And that the application for research is typically, okay, the power went out, the temperature started to raise. I need to know for my research if it's still good, how long it was out and how high the temperature was. And that's where that comes into play.
If we were to like purchase it, like subscription, how much would it be for just like each lab to purchase like the probe?
Oh, gotcha. Oh, I gotcha. The monitoring subscription.
Yeah,
So I want to say list price on a negative 80 kit is $498. You could assume at 20% or something like that discount on those.
and it depends on how many we would purchase.
It depends on how many, and then the pricing for monitoring is based on the total number of points of monitoring. We could leverage, we've already got a couple small labs at University of Florida. Sometimes we'll just kind of leverage that for bigger discounts for you.
You've already got this many points in service, so we can just lump onto that.
Yeah.
And then it is prorated as well. So if you added a freezer 4 months into the term, we invoice you for the remaining 8 months so that everything matches up annually. And there's, then again, with grant money, I've seen University of Ohio, this is the longest one. They had grant money and they prepaid for 8 years. But it's an incubator lab where, thank you, it's a innovation lab. So they have startups come into their lab, and then I don't know if you have one of those here. Do you have like an innovation lab?
Yeah, there's a place called Innovation Academy.
Yeah, there is.
So they use our system to sell it to, because that's competitive. People have options as far as where they want to do their research, and they'll say to the people, well, if you use our innovation lab, you're gonna have 24/7 monitoring of all your research. So
Which is a huge benefit.
yeah, we can leverage that too. You said that's interesting, Alex. I had not heard what you mentioned earlier, that you saw a grant that required this as part of the funding.
Yeah, and that's what I'm gonna get whatever information you have. He wasn't able to show up today, but he wanted the information just because he is looking into what he can do to be able to.
Perhaps it's an equipment run, actually.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know that they purchased they recently purchased -80, a large one. And I think that's probably off of a grant.
Some equipment grants will require that you at least show some form of ability to maintain it,
Yeah.
calibrate it.
So it's tied into that.
Tight with how you use it for
So-
research, so yeah, it's more recent you start seeing this.
Yeah, that's interesting. How many, do you know how many in this group? How many -80s or?
I still haven't counted it, each one, but
There's quite a lot of labs in the department.
Yeah.
So I'll put it between at least 6 to 8 labs would be interested to doing this.
Yeah.
Like typically in my lab, I think we have probably like 3 to 4 freezers, not counting any shared ones, the department is doing, the department has. So it's actually quite a lot of freezers, and I think freezers will be the one thing that, most people are much more concerned about. Yeah.
Maybe incubators?
Potentially,
Yeah.
yes, that really comes down to, if this is gonna be like a department resource, a department managed task, then. Perhaps some assets that are shared within the department would make sense for them to cover it in.
Yeah.
Or specific PIs can then chip in based upon what specific assets they have.
Yeah.
That they want to put into the system as well, you know.
Interesting. I would be curious, because our pricing continues to drop. You know, the more like any company, the more, you know, it's scale or it's economies of scale sort of thing. If there's a way to get your costs lower,
Yeah.
if there's a way to get a bigger face on UF research. And I don't know if have you worked that angle before or when you're purchasing things?
Yes, when I worked at ICBR, there's like a membership. And, because we can incorporate mini labs, they brought the price down from 1,500 to 300.
Yeah.
And it's because you have many labs, using that same subscription, and then we also had a partnership with Scripps. So all of that brought that price down dramatically, and
Correct,
now
yep.
you have so many people using that service.
Yeah,
But yeah, that will be something to consider at the faculty meeting. I think you should check with Shannon on that.
Yeah.
If it's something doable as a department resource.
Yeah, because like, so, it wasn't our department that the -80 failed, but it was in our room. And it was from a hospital, so I think they had like critical patient samples in there or stuff that was older. That just, was gonna be used for research in the future. And like, it was probably down for a month or two and no one knew. Yeah, it was down like the entire break. So that's what caused me to like look into this. But then when I asked around from different labs and the PIs, they told me they didn't have anything monitoring it. So like, that's the thing that, is what's crucial with your research and how you're able to like get funding and publications and all that stuff. Like the whole economy of the lab is based on those freezers because they have the most critical things for you to be able to like do your experiments.
yeah,
Frankly, if you're like if this is your lab, you have a very small lab, just a couple of personnel. Most PI would not consider doing this, just because more often you're gonna get at least 1 or 2 personnel during the weekdays in the lab. So if the alarm goes off, you probably do it immediately. On the weekends, and this is very typical for most research.
Thank you.
labs, even on weekends, as long as 1 person on that floor hears it, they pretty much will contact the person involved because we have little stickers that like let's literally paste it on the freezer, like, and having to contact this person.
yeah.
So it's a very humane way of like managing this problem. So in actual fact, we never get to a problem, and we never get to the state whereby we completely lost samples in that freezer, because when you receive the call, you just rush in immediately.
Yeah.
So that's the situation we have. So I think what's really good for this is if there's like a major natural disaster or whereby people cannot make it in,
Yeah.
We typically only have 1 or 2 contact person that stays in the building when
Yeah.
there's a hurricane. And having this system online will pretty much help facilitate where to go when things happen, where to go to fix things and stuff like that. That's my thought.
Yeah.
And it's also common that sometimes people would click the alarm and switch it off and then walk off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying this doesn't happen, but it does happen sometimes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I know in McKnight Brain Institute over here,
Mhm.
they got vandalized one time, and it was, I think it was out of work hours, it must have been like at midnight. And they didn't have cameras in the building yet,
Mhm.
now they have cameras in every floor,
Yeah, besides that is the problem of trespassing.
but they
which is-
unplugged everything.
Which has become a problem that most people are realizing
Yeah.
lately, to lock the doors where important assets and pieces are kept, because we get trespassers who comes in, they just fiddle stuff, or they might just come unplug things, or stole, they really will steal anything that's all valuable, so.
Or PETA,
Yeah.
because the PETA likes to attack different labs if they're using mice. or
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we have, we have labs that do work with
Yeah.
mice, so they are a target.
Yeah.
And that's something that we always have to kind of think in the back of our mind.
Sure.
Yeah, we do a little bit of that type of monitoring. Animal Health International is a customer. I don't want to hold, and I didn't bring that up to like, if you guys need a solution, I don't want to slow you down from getting something.
Yeah.
Just thinking in terms of what I've seen before, where we're leveraging other departments to get each department's cost lower. And that can happen as an add-on as well. So that as a customer grows with us, your cost goes down, from where it even initially started. So.
I think the warranty piece is something that is a key differentiator for us. I mean, you're really only paying the one-time upfront costs other than the monitoring piece, because you're covered
Yeah.
indefinitely.
Mhm.
If, as long as you're a customer, so you never have to pay to replace a sensor, or, something breaks or something gets vandalized, you call us up and we take care of it.
Yeah, it's under warranty. And then, like I said, we have a local service partner, who can come out and,
Yeah, I think.
install or install new things after the fact, that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is something to bring up during the meeting. We talk to Shannon about that, and then to bring all the PIs on board on this. Yeah.
Yeah, because it kind of is like, if they are all on board, then there is more pressure to go forward.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate decision will be the chair, and then we make the purchase kind of thing. But like, the good thing about, or I don't know, that's like, I've noticed the culture here is like, one person will purchase something and then, oh, I need that, like they'll see the interest.
Yep.
They don't want to be the first.
Kind of like get, perhaps something to actually kind of like help to bring this along is if we could get some kind of idea of how the pricing would like,
Yeah.
if we have like one asset being monitored, like for example, the easiest one and most common thing is just freezers. Because freezers is the one thing that most PIs are very, very particular about.
Yeah.
So if like 5 freezers versus like 10 freezers, what would the cost reduction look like? Then we can then bring this forward during the next meeting with actual numbers.
We can do that.
If you could give us something like that to move on from it, or whether like freezers plus like CO2 incubators or anaerobic chambers, how would the price difference then look like?
Do you do ambient temperatures at all?
No.
No.
So I'm asking, I know there might not be a lot of freezers necessarily clustered together in one lab, but like CTSI, like the Power Repository, for example, where there's a lot of freezers together, putting out a lot of heat. A lot of times those areas, they want to monitor the ambient conditions because those rooms get really hot.
Temperature is not, as critical as oxygen level. Because we do work with certain cultures which are very, sensitive to oxygen. So we have like chambers where we need it to be completely deprived of oxygen. So if there's something like a carbon CO2 sensor probes, those are probably something critical because multiple labs in this building actually work on it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
passes the CO2 chamber, all things is caught all for the next 3 days before we can actually use it again.
We can monitor that as well. We need a full list.
I thought.
And hey, the remote folks, we're getting tossed out of the room here.
I don't know, it's just like, I'm not sure whether there's a meeting here.
Yeah,
So
at least Chris.
Gail, did you have any questions for us if you're still on?
Yeah, I think we should
Yeah.
take it. to the
Well,
next
thanks,
level.
everyone.
I'll let Shen know, talk about it.